In the summer of 1857, America was obsessed with one thing: gold. Not the kind locked away in banks, but the kind that promised a new life. The kind that could turn a nobody into a legend overnight. California was still a dream at the edge of the continent, a place people spoke about in whispers and newspaper headlines. A land where the streets were not paved with gold, but where gold was close enough to touch. Thousands chased that dream west. Miners, merchants, gamblers, families. Some struck it rich, most did not. But by 1857, something unexpected happened. The gold began to move east. Ships loaded with fortunes sailed from California, carrying millions of dollars in gold back to the heart of America. This gold was not just personal wealth, it was the backbone of the entire U.S. economy. Banks depended on it. Businesses waited for it. The future of the nation leaned on those shipments. And no ship carried more hope or more gold than one steamship leaving Panama in September of that year. Her name was the SS Central America. She was called the Ship of Gold. To the passengers, she was not just transportation, she was safety. She was certainty. She was the final step between struggle and success. On board were over 400 souls, men who had survived the mines, women traveling with children, entire families returning home at last. They carried gold coins, gold dust, gold bars wrapped in canvas and sealed with wax. Some carried more money than they had ever seen in their lives. Others carried the savings of banks, businesses, and investors. To them, the worst was already behind them: the hard labor, the danger, the hunger. Now, all they had to do was cross the ocean. The SS Central America was strong, modern, reliable, or so they believed. As the ship steamed north toward New York, no one knew that the ocean was already watching them, waiting. And within days, this floating symbol of American success would become the stage for one of the darkest disasters in the nation's history. A disaster where gold would lose all meaning, and survival would demand the ultimate price. The SS Central America was not an ordinary ship. She was a side-wheel steamship, nearly 300 feet long, built to carry both passengers and immense cargo. Her engines were powerful, her hull was strong, and to the people who boarded her, she represented modern American confidence. This was a ship designed to tame the ocean. On September 3, 1857, she departed from Havana, heading north toward New York. Before that, she had picked up passengers from Panama, the final link between California and the East Coast. The people who stepped onto her deck came from every walk of life. There were miners, their hands still scarred from years of digging in frozen rivers. Some had failed in California, returning home with little more than disappointment. Others were quietly wealthy, carrying gold worth more than entire towns back east. There were businessmen, transporting gold on behalf of banks and investors. This gold was not pocket change. It was meant to stabilize the U.S. financial system. There were women in fine dresses, children clutching dolls and blankets, families finally reunited after years apart. To many of them, this voyage marked the end of hardship. They were tired, but they were hopeful. The ship's captain was William Lewis Herndon, a respected naval officer and experienced commander. He was calm, disciplined, and widely trusted. His presence alone reassured the passengers. Herndon knew the ocean. He had faced storms before. He believed this ship could handle whatever lay ahead. The weather at first seemed unremarkable. The sea rolled gently beneath the hull. The engines beat with steady rhythm. Smoke rose cleanly from the funnels. Passengers walked the decks. They talked about home, about investments, about futures finally within reach. Below deck, the gold was secured. Heavy boxes stacked deep in the ship's hold. Canvas bags filled with coins. Gold bars stamped and sealed. Millions of dollars rested beneath their feet. Few thought about the danger. After all, this was the Atlantic Ocean. Ships crossed it every day. Storms came and went. And the SS Central America was strong. But the ocean does not care about confidence. It does not care about wealth. And it does not respect human schedules. Far to the south, a storm was forming. Slowly, silently, a massive hurricane was building strength, moving northward, directly into the ship's path. And when the first signs appeared, it was already too late to turn back. The first warning came as a change in the wind. What had been a steady ocean breeze turned heavy and restless. The air grew thick. The sky darkened, not suddenly, but with intention, as if the horizon itself was closing in. By September 9th, 1857, the SS Central America was deep in the Atlantic, too far from land, too committed to the journey to easily turn back. Rain began to fall. At first it was light, almost comforting. Then the waves started to rise. The ship pitched and rolled, its massive engines groaning as they fought the growing sea. Passengers were ordered below deck. Hatches were secured. Loose cargo was tied down. Captain Herndon studied the sky. He knew this was no ordinary storm. The wind screamed across the deck, ripping canvas and snapping ropes. Water slammed against the hull with the sound of cannon fire. Hour by hour, the hurricane intensified. Waves towered above the ship, crashing down in walls of black water. The deck vanished beneath the sea, then reappeared, slick and shaking. Below deck, fear spread quickly. People clung to bunks. Children cried in the dark. Lanterns swung violently, casting shadows that twisted like living things. Then came the moment that sealed their fate. Seawater began to pour into the ship. The storm had found a weakness. Water flooded the engine room, drenching the boilers. The engines slowed, then slowed again. Each time the ship lost power, she became more helpless against the waves. The pumps were activated immediately. Men worked in knee-deep water, passing buckets, fighting to keep the ship alive. But the sea was relentless. Water poured in faster than it could be removed. The engine sputtered. Steam pressure dropped. And then the SS Central America fell silent. The engines died. Without power, the ship could no longer face the waves head-on. She turned broadside to the storm, the most dangerous position possible. Every wave now struck her full force. The passengers could feel it. This was no longer discomfort. This was survival. The dream of gold, of home, of safety, was slipping away with every crashing wave. And the worst
was still to come.
When the engine stopped, panic became impossible to contain. The SS Central America was now a powerless object, thrown around by one of the strongest hurricanes the Atlantic had seen in years. Water surged through the ship. The lower decks flooded completely. Passengers were forced upward, crowding into narrow spaces, their belongings abandoned to the sea. Captain Herndon remained on deck. He gave orders calmly, even as the storm howled around him. He knew that fear could kill faster than water. The crew worked without rest. Men formed human chains, passing buckets of seawater, their hands bleeding, their muscles shaking with exhaustion. They bailed for hours. The water did not slow. Every wave added more weight. Every minute pulled the ship lower into the ocean. As the night dragged on, reality set in. The ship was dying. Lifeboats were prepared, but there was a terrible truth. There were not enough boats for everyone. Captain Herndon made the only decision a man in his position could make. Women and children first. Mothers clutched infants to their chests. Young boys were pulled from their fathers' arms. Tears mixed with rain, washed instantly away by the storm. Some men tried to remain strong. Others collapsed in grief. No one argued with the captain. Everyone understood what this meant. One by one, lifeboats were lowered into the Black Sea. Each time a boat disappeared into the waves, those left behind felt the ship grow emptier, lighter, closer to the end. The men remaining on deck did not fight for places. Many removed their hats. Some shook hands. Some prayed quietly. Gold meant nothing now. Pockets filled with coins were useless. Bars of gold sat untouched below deck, worthless as stone. What mattered was life, and there was not enough space for all of it. The storm showed no mercy. Waves crashed over the deck, sweeping men into the ocean. The ship groaned, her wooden frame cracking under the pressure. Still, Captain Herndon refused to abandon his post. Witnesses later said he stood near the wheel, soaked, exhausted, guiding the crew until the very last moment. He knew the ship would not survive the night, and yet, he stayed. As dawn approached, the ocean prepared to claim what it had been circling for days. The ship of gold was almost ready to sink.
As morning broke on September 12, 1857, the storm finally began to weaken. But for the SS Central America, the damage had already been done. The ship sat low in the water, dangerously low. Each wave rolled across the deck instead of beneath it. The pumps had failed. The crew was exhausted. Many of the strongest men were already gone, either sent away in lifeboats or swallowed by the sea. Captain Herndon gave his final orders. The remaining lifeboats were launched. They vanished into the distance, tiny shapes rising and falling on the gray horizon. More than 150 men were left behind. They stood quietly now. No screaming, no chaos. Some leaned against railings. Others sat on the deck, their backs to the rising water. A few held hands. They had accepted what was coming. At approximately 8 a.m., a massive wave struck the ship's side. The SS Central America shuddered. Then, slowly, inevitably, she began to sink. Water rushed over the deck. The bow dipped forward. The stern rose into the air, exposing the massive propellers one last time. Captain Herndon was seen standing near the wheel, his uniform soaked, his face calm. He did not jump. He did not reach for help. He went down with his ship. As the Central America slipped beneath the surface, men were thrown into the ocean. Some tried to swim.
Some clung to debris. Most disappeared almost instantly. The sea closed over the deck, over the gold, over the dreams. In minutes, the ship of gold was gone. 400 people had boarded her. More than half would never be seen again. The Atlantic Ocean became their grave. No markers, no names, no bodies, just silence. And somewhere beneath thousands of feet of water, millions of dollars in gold settled into the darkness, untouched, unclaimed. But the story was not over, because for those who survived, the nightmare had only just begun.
The ocean was suddenly quiet. Not calm, but empty. Where the SS Central America had stood, there was now only wreckage, broken wood, floating crates, bits of canvas and rope, and people. Men and women clung to anything that would keep them above water: planks, doors, pieces of the ship that had carried their lives just hours before. The sea was cold. Every minute drained strength from their bodies. Waves rolled over their faces, stealing breath, stealing hope. Some prayed, some screamed for help that was not there. Others were too exhausted to do either. Lifeboats drifted through the wreckage, overloaded and unstable. Those inside watched helplessly as survivors reached toward them from the water. There was no room. Hands slipped away. Voices faded. One by one, people disappeared beneath the surface, their strength finally gone. Hours passed. The sun climbed higher, beating down on the living. Salt burned their eyes, their lips cracked, their throats swelled with thirst. The ocean gave nothing back. By chance, one of the lifeboats spotted a sail on the horizon, a passing ship. Flares were fired, shouts filled the air. For a moment, hope returned. The ship altered course. One by one, survivors were pulled from the sea. Some were barely alive. Some had lost consciousness moments before rescue. They were hauled aboard, wrapped in blankets, laid across decks stained with salt and tears. Many asked the same question: how many survived? No one had an answer. By the time the rescue was complete, only about 150 people remained alive. More than 250 had vanished into the Atlantic. Among the dead was Captain Herndon. Among the lost were children. Mothers, fathers. Men who had endured years of hardship only to die within sight of rescue. The gold was gone, the ship was gone, and the survivors carried something far heavier than wealth. They carried memory. And soon, the entire nation would feel the weight of what had sunk beneath the waves. News of the disaster spread slowly. In 1857, there were no instant alerts, no breaking news banners. Families waited, banks waited, businesses waited. Then the truth arrived. The SS Central America was gone, along with millions of dollars in gold, along with hundreds of lives. The impact was immediate. Banks that had been expecting shipments of gold suddenly found their vaults empty. Loans collapsed. Credit vanished overnight. Within weeks, the United States plunged into a financial panic. Businesses failed. Workers lost jobs. Savings disappeared. It became known as the Panic of 1857.
One ship had sunk, and an entire economy had followed. Newspapers printed the names of the dead, page after page. Stories of courage, stories of unimaginable loss. Captain Herndon was remembered as a hero, a man who chose duty over survival. Survivors were questioned endlessly. What had happened? Why had the ship not turned back? Could anything have been done? The ocean, as always, gave no answers. Families mourned without bodies. There were no funerals, no graves to visit. Only empty chairs at dinner tables. Only silence. For decades, the ship of gold became legend, a whispered tragedy, a symbol of greed, of hope, of the ocean's indifference. The gold remained untouched, lying in darkness, far beyond human reach. Many tried to find it. Most failed. And as time passed, the SS Central America faded from memory. But the ocean never forgets. More than a century later, someone would finally return to that grave beneath the waves, and the story would rise once more.
For more than 100 years, the SS Central America slept in darkness. 2 miles beneath the Atlantic, pressure crushed steel, and silence ruled everything. The gold remained exactly where it had fallen, untouched, unseen, waiting. In the late 1980s, technology finally caught up with legend. A team of explorers, engineers, and deep-sea scientists set out to find what many believed was lost forever. Using sonar, remote-operated vehicles, and cameras built to survive impossible pressure, they searched the ocean floor. Then, in 1988, they found it. The wreck. There, scattered across the seabed, lay the remains of the ship of gold, broken hull, twisted metal, and glinting softly in artificial light. Gold. Stacks of coins rested where they had settled. Gold bars lay half buried in sediment, unchanged by time. For the first time since 1857, human hands touched the lost fortune. The discovery shocked the world. Millions of dollars in gold were recovered. Coins were cleaned, identified, and auctioned. Museums displayed them. Collectors fought to own them. But with the gold came questions. Who did it belong to? The banks? The insurers? The descendants of the dead? Years of legal battles followed as courts tried to divide a fortune claimed by the living and earned by the lost. Yet no ruling could change one truth. The real cost of that gold had already been paid. In lives, in suffering, in silence beneath the waves. Today, pieces of the SS Central America sit behind glass, labeled and preserved. But the ocean still holds most of her. Most of the gold, most of the dead, and all of the unanswered questions. Because history is not just what we recover, it is what we lose and never truly get back.
The story of the SS Central America is not really about gold. Gold was just the weight that pulled everything else down. It is a story about belief, about a nation convinced that progress could outrun nature, that technology could conquer the ocean, that wealth could guarantee safety. For a moment, it seemed true. The ship was strong. The passengers were confident. The future looked certain. And then the sea reminded them how fragile all of it really was. More than 250 people vanished in a single storm, not because they were careless, but because they trusted the dream. The same dream that built America, the same dream that still drives people forward today. Some dreams carry us to new lives, others carry us to the bottom. Beneath the Atlantic, the ship of gold still rests, a monument without a plaque, a warning without words. If this story stayed with you, remember this. Every shortcut has a cost, every fortune has a weight, and the ocean always collects its debt. Thank you for listening. If you want more true stories about survival, lost history, and the thin line between hope and disaster, subscribe to the channel, because some stories should never be forgotten.